This video will cover the topic of vetting inspections as conducted on vessels, and in particular I'll be talking about the objectives of vetting inspections and the initiatives in this field, particularly SIRE, which is a ship inspection report program. I'll also talk about ship condition surveys and also talk about chemical distribution institutes, that are CDIs. So let's get started. I don't want to waste too much of your time here. So we'll first start with the concept of ship vetting inspections. Now, ship vetting is an in-depth assessment of a ship with respect to its quality and that of its owner, operator, and manager, right from commissioning to current status. Vetting enables the charter to optimize vessel selection by matching the available vessels to operational requirements of the voyage and therefore maximizing efficiency. A bit of history about vetting inspections. Well, tanker ownership was traditionally with oil companies, and long-term time charters were becoming increasingly rare, with the spot charter market becoming very active. In and around the 70s and the 80s, the oil industry saw ownership of tankers gradually moving from oil companies to independent ship owners. The pattern of tanker ownership moved from the well-established independent ship owner with a substantial fleet to non-traditional shipping interests, often with no active interest or experience in shipping. The fleet size was also small, sometimes only a single ship representing the owner's stake in the oil industry. Ship managers began to play a growing and influential role in the changing world. The oil industry, now being a major spot charterer of all types of tonnage, began to be concerned with the quality of tankers. A number of oil, or rather a number of member companies of an internationally well-established organization called the Oil Companies International Marine Forum, or OCIMF, began the development of ship vetting systems in the late 70s and early 80s. Each scheme was unique to the individual company's needs, recognizing that different standards were sometimes being applied with consequent confusion among ship owners. OCIMF members developed inspection guidelines for oil tankers in 1989 based on international conventions such as SOLAS, MARPOL, STCW, etc. And industry accepted technical guidance such as ISGOT, or ISGOT is known as International Safety Guide for Oil Tankers and Terminals, and other standards. Individual in-house databases enable the oil company to form a reliable view of a ship's suitability for charter. The number of major tanker accidents in 1989, ship quality and liability issues assumed an even greater prominence in the oil industry. Besides vessels, there was a realization in the industry that shore-based management of the ship was important as well. Therefore, OCIMF members began to assess the quality of ship management agencies, operators, their policies, and the implementation of those policies. But then let's move on to the objectives of vetting inspections. The overall aim of the vetting inspection is to increase safety at sea and to decrease pollution. The following issues are part of the broader perspective of the ship vetting. So the objectives of ship vetting are to check whether the ship complies in every respect with international legislation and with certain industrial standards, to avoid major oil pollution cases because it damages the reputation of oil companies and it involves enormous financial responsibilities. At the same time, the environment is better protected, to increase safety on board as well as to better the safety management of a company, to decrease the danger of explosion and or fire and the ensuing damages for the terminal installation and its surroundings, to ensure that cargo is not carried on substandard ships, and finally that there are too many implications if the cargo is damaged or lost due to substandard vessels, owners, operators, or managers. There are at present mainly two initiatives working in the field of ship vetting. The first one is a Ship Inspection Report Program, or SIRE, which is a project worked out by the OCIMF members and concerns the transport of oil by sea. With a significant increase in ship inspection activity, OCIMF members with ship vetting programs recognized that duplication of ship inspections was occurring, and occasionally several inspectors from oil companies and indeed from other organizations such as port state controls and insurance interests had been on board the ship at the same time and causing confusion. Clearly, apart from the sheer inefficiency of this activity, ship staff was put under consideration or considerable stress at times when the ship was busy in port, probably during loading and discharging. OCIMF members also recognize that it would be impossible for individual companies to maintain up-to-date inspection reports on every ship that was potentially of interest to them, and some system of sharing inspection reports was necessary. This combination of circumstances led to the development of the program of SIRE in November 1993. The original SIRE program consisted of a database comprising OCIMF member company inspection reports compiled according to each company's individual inspection procedures. The SIRE report itself contained only that information that had been submitted by the inspecting company, and neither the report nor OCIMF provided any conclusion, rating, or recommendation as to the suitability of the ship. A key feature of SIRE is that membership is entirely voluntary. Then the second initiative was the Chemical Distribution Institute, or CDI, which was an independent organization with its own statutes, and it also was a part of a bigger project initiated under the Responsible Care Program of the European Community, concerning the distribution, transport, and storage of chemicals and gas over the road, in the air, and at sea. CDI was based in the UK and has its own inspection system, which it is harmonizing with the OCIMF or SIRE system. The form was originally introduced by the CEFIC, the European Chemical Industry Council. The CDI is gradually harmonizing its safety measures with OCIMF so the two groups can share information. Companies in CDI include Chevron, Dow, BP, Norsk, Shell, DuPont, ExxonMobil, etc. The databases are available to all participating companies, accredited inspector ship owners, and terminal operators. CDI produces reports analysis software which can now, for example, show tables and reports of the numbers and percentage of non-conformities, inspector observations, comments, and non-conformances by the category. Let's talk about the inspection process. Inspectors working for oil companies go on board ship and make a report based on the quality of the vessel, its equipment, and operational practices. Under the SIRE program, all the vetting inspections which oil companies make on ship owners are put into a standard format so that they can be shared between the oil companies. The vetting inspection is very thorough and strict. Under no circumstances can it be taken lightly. Every aspect on the ship is put to test, be it big or small, from the main engine to the galley exhaust. The inspection takes a few hours to conduct, but once accomplished and passed, there is normally a validity of 1 year. An important point to note is that if a deficiency found is a small one, the ship owner through the ship staff is given time to have it rectified, after which, if found satisfactory, the ship is passed. But if the deficiency is big, the ship fails the inspection and the ship will once again be put to an entire vetting inspection to have it passed. But under no circumstances can a ship be detained. All the failure of a vetting inspection results is that the oil company will not put its cargo on the vessel till such time the vessel has passed the vetting inspection. This in itself is a big commercial loss for the ship owner. Finally, I want to talk about the ship condition surveys which are organized by the P&I Club to enable managers to determine whether the entered ships conform to acceptable standards. These are completed on vessels for the following reasons. When ships over 10 years old are entered in the club, this can be either a pre-entry or a post-entry condition survey. If after a visit by a club inspector, the inspector feels that the ship does not conform to the club standards, following a claim which could possibly have occurred due to lapse in on-board maintenance and management, if information is received from a third party, for example, a post-trade control that the ship is below the club standard, if the ship changes classification societies, usually from an International Association of Classification Society to a non-International Association of Classification Society, if after a lengthy period of layup, which is more than 6 months, a ship is reactivated into a voyage. It is important to note that independent surveyors appointed by the Ship Inspection Department of a P&I club carry out the condition surveys. It is vital in a mutual club that each member feels confident that they are sharing their claim and premium with ship owners of similar quality. The condition survey system is a way of ensuring this confidence is maintained. And lastly, I'll talk about the surveys that are carried out by port terminal authorities, which is a localized form of survey. It is entirely dependent upon the domestic and local laws by which a particular port is governed. The objective of such an inspection is once again to ensure that the ship will undertake the cargo operations in a safe manner without causing any harm to the port property, its dock workers, and the environment. The inspections can therefore include a thorough checking of the cargo equipment, the safety measures on board, in normal circumstances as well as in emergency situations, all the overboard discharges, and the levels of communication between the ship and the port. It is in the interest of the vessel that prior to its arrival, it confirms from the ship's agent regarding the presence of any local laws that the port is governed by for which the vessel will have to undergo an inspection.